As governor, if elected, what's one thing you will do to improve real estate in Kentucky?
Well, defend the middle class. We also heard, what I heard were a lot of favorite GOP talking points. Somebody mentioned Obama's war on coal. Oh my goodness, I worked, this is my professional career, for 14 years in Frankfurt. I worked on developing alternative technologies for Kentucky to diversify our energy sources. There is no war on coal except that being waged by corporations that engage in fracking in Ohio, West Virginia, states to our northeast. Natural gas, cheap natural gas from fracking is what's undercutting our coal industry.
And I will also fight to protect the mortgage interest rate deduction. Those are two issues that I know are very important to everyone in here. I will be an active, accessible governor who fights for small business owners and who fights against excessive government or excessive government regulations. And I have a track record as Commissioner of Agriculture against fighting back against the federal government overreach and state government overreach. Being accessible means I will work with trade groups like the Kentucky Association of Realtors. I know that you all are the experts in your field. And it's important that the governor has great relationships with the trade association. I cite my tenure as Commissioner of Agriculture. If you know anyone in an agricultural trade group, a commodity group, ask them about the relationship they have with the Department of Agriculture. I am confident that they will say it's the best relationship they've ever had. It's an open door policy. I'm active and accessible, and that's what we need in a government. I'll work to pass good legislation and fight against bad legislation. And I know you all have some legislation this session.
An efficient energy system for all sectors of the Kentucky economy.
Obviously, Jack Conway has a lot of name recognition. How do you feel you're going to be able to compete with him in the primary?
I think it will become clear to the voters, Democratic voters of Kentucky, that he doesn't really have constructive ideas when it comes to addressing the four major issues I just mentioned. I have an in-depth understanding of these issues. I think they're the most critical issues facing Kentucky. And I'm sorry to say that Jack Conway has a record of avoiding the issues when he campaigns. And I'm the issues candidate. I'm the only progressive Democrat running for governor.
It's causing miners to be thrown out of work. And what we have here, when a Republican politician talks about energy, you're going to hear a whole lot of nonsense. They want to root for coal, but really they're against environmental regulations on coal. And they oppose, of course, environmental regulations on coal. They're also kind of, it's a matter of religion for them. They oppose environmental regulations on fracking too. And that undercuts the coal industry. And it tilts the playing field in favor of natural gas. It's an irrational policy, and we just heard from 4 enemies of coal. The moral principle at work here is that the polluter should pay. And if coal, the environmental impacts of coal are being regulated, the environmental impacts of natural gas should be regulated also. Even up the playing field, and we'll save the jobs of a few miners.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our meeting today. I'd like to thank all of our gubernatorial candidates for showing up and give them a round of applause.
That's what I do. Folks can't blow day. That's what I do. Government fixed, your foundation rebuilt in real stone that's held together so you can build a house on it for the future that the storm and the wolves can't blow down. That's what I do. Government fixed, your foundation rebuilt in real stone that's held together so you can build a house on it for the future that the storm and the wolves can't blow down. That's what I do. Government fixed, your foundation rebuilt in real stone that's held together so you can build a house on it for the future that the storm and the wolves can't blow down. That's what I do. That's what I've lived. That's what I know. I know government. And if you all will have me and my walking tall sheriff, I'd love to serve you because that's the only reason I'm in it for.
He was elected in 2010, immediately cut the tax rates, as all 4 Republicans today have said they wanted to do. He slashed the tax rates, especially on the wealthiest and most powerful members of 1%, really, of Wisconsin. The result was an instant budget crisis, and then he got out his chainsaw. On the wealthiest and most powerful members of 1%, really, of Wisconsin. The result was an instant budget crisis, and then he got out his chainsaw. On the wealthiest and most powerful members of 1%, really, of Wisconsin. The result was an instant budget crisis, and then he got out his chainsaw and cut education. He cut services, he cut investment in infrastructure, and now I've been involved actively in the political arena for 36 years. I've been involved in issues mainly, not running for office. I ran for office in last year against Andy Barr. I lost the Democratic primary last May, but I got 39% of the Democratic vote.
And I do that 25% of you.
I've heard a lot of political rhetoric in the last 36 years. I heard more of it today also. And what I heard is a lot of code words. Mr. Scott said that tax reform, comprehensive tax reform, is a code word for raising your taxes. Well, I'm going to talk about some code words here that I heard today. When he says income taxes will decrease. When Hal Heiner says we have to reduce the personal income tax rate. When Mr. Comer says Tennessee has no income tax, we should aim for that. When Matt Bevin says we have to do away with the death tax, and Tennessee has a 0% income tax rate. Okay, what they're talking about is class warfare against the middle class. Income tax rate. Okay, what they're talking about is class warfare against the middle class. Income tax rate. Okay, what they're talking about is class warfare against the middle class.
Regulations are obsolete, antiquated regulations that slow down growth in the state. We have to get them out of the way. We need to grow jobs in this economy. We need a governor that will help Kentucky become in the top 10 states in the U.S. in business climate. And then just watch us take off, which is good for families. That will help Kentucky become in the top 10 states in the U.S. in business climate. And then just watch us take off, which is good for families. That will help Kentucky become in the top 10 states in the U.S. in business climate. And then just watch us take off, which is good for families. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to change Frankfurt. We cannot stay on the path that we're on. We cannot have another 4 years of kicking the can down the road and counting that as progress if we are going to remain the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. We cannot stay where we are. We cannot stay with the tax code we have today. We cannot stay with the regulations the way they're enforced today. And we all know, as you've read, the financial difficulties we've had in Kentucky. We cannot stay on the financial platform we have today. So I ask you to join me in taking Frankfurt back. I ask you to say no to the insiders that have been entrenched in Frankfurt for decades, and say yes to job growth, yes to new choices in education for our kids.
That's what they're talking about. Sales taxes are regressive. Flat taxes end up being regressive in practice. We had a couple of Republicans talking about implementing right to bust unions. That's what I call it. That's a code word. Right to work is a code word. What they're really talking about is class warfare against working people. In states where unions are strong, the middle class is strong. Their economies do better. We need more unions and stronger unions, not union busting. So I'm running against the whole Republican Party. Mr. Scott mentioned ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. As governor, if I find out that a bill that's been passed by one of the houses or both houses of the General Assembly were written by ALEC, I will look at that legislation very, very suspiciously.
Do you have to lift him or other?
Wake up the giant.
No, sometimes.
Because you need a renaissance
doing
before the
research,
enlightenment.
you have to have
Because you can't
someone
move
on the
sleeping
front
people.
Yeah.
You have to first wake them up. It's Malcolm X. OSHA's a cool dude. That's Ralph Nader. Got OSHA and stuff. It's a cool gig.
Yeah, it is. We catch hell sometimes because you'd be surprised at how many owners know that they are.
Yes to fewer government regulations and an open door and an open administration. And I'd ask you, as a fellow real estate professional, to please say yes to Hal Heiner for governor. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you today.
Would you mind answering the question? What is your attitude toward tax reform?
On tax reform, we sit here today at a 6% personal income tax rate. And I think we know what's going on borders north and south of us. You know, Indiana's at 3.4. We know where Tennessee is at 0. Republican Governor John Kasich in Ohio said we have to find a way to 0 if we're going to compete for jobs. Last summer, in fact, they dropped from 5.9. They were kind of like Kentucky to 5.3.
I think it's going to start at 2:30. It's about noon. And Jack Conway's putting politics over people. He's being childish. He's being immature. That's what he's doing. He's playing Mitch McConnell games. You pretend the opponent. You don't call him by name. You say it's the opponent, and that's just how it is. Here's the man right here.
The question of what is going to improve our economy, defending the middle class. Comprehensive tax reform is essential. Our current structure depends heavily on personal income taxes to provide revenue for the projects and initiatives that our society has judged are worth pursuing. I will work to encourage that, to keep the personal income tax, and to add some tax brackets at the very highest level. The 1% richest and most powerful Kentuckians are not pulling their weight. They're trying to unload the tax burden in this Commonwealth on poor people. That's a scandal. And on working people, and on the middle class. And the best way to improve the prospects for real estate in Kentucky is to grow the middle class, not launch a class war against us.
The way the event will work today is like this. We have 5 gubernatorial candidates that are with us today.
And his goal is to continue to push down on personal income tax. We have to reduce personal income tax rate. I'm not for revenue generation. Our governor, as the last 2 years, they first started at $650 million more on Kentuckians, And then this last year, about 250 million more on Kentuckians, and I think he's just abandoned the effort this year. But the answer, when we're in the top 9 states in the country for tax burden, the answer to grow this economy isn't layering on more taxes. We need to find ways to reduce the personal income tax rate. It's going to take comprehensive tax reform. I don't think we should piecemeal it. I think we need a comprehensive plan to move Kentucky forward.